Hey, howdy ho, Lions fans. Welcome to the Detroit Lions podcast, episode 562. This is the Detroit Lions off-season kickoff. This is the official Detroit Lions podcast for Reddit. I am your dashing host, Chris, and with me is my good friend, finely coiffed, highly intelligent, and damn good-looking guy, Jeff the Riz Risden. How you doing, brother?
I'm finally getting warm. I had to shovel snow before I did this, so my hair's all hatted. So I just kind of went with it. Yeah. It's snowing here in West Michigan. It's cold. It sucks. I'm ready to move to Belize.
You can tell by my face. I was out measuring today. 12 inches of sun, and it just kept coming down. Coming down nonstop. Got myself a nice tan. Feeling good. Like I was able to take that base that we got in Mobile and really turn it into a little bit of something here.
That's good. I'm happy for you. I'm frozen, and I'm going to where it's even colder this weekend, and I'm not thrilled about that either.
It's hilarious because there's no tan going on in the summer because you hide inside. You turn basically white from the blue fluorescent. I look like Michigan winter here in the summer because it's so miserable outside.
Oh, wow.
All right, let's get into it.
I would do this show outside if I could in the summer. But
oh, yeah. Oh, man.
We get crowd noise, so that's a problem.
All right, let's talk about it. We got warm-ups, we got coaching ads, we got a quick retrospective on the 2024 season, a little bit of what can we take away, what can we learn as fans, and we're looking for free agency and the draft, just kind of do a quick setup on that. There's a lot of conversations to have on that. We've got a guy we love, a local Detroit guy in Maxwell Hairston, Mad Max. He was such a great kid. But we have other guys that we'll probably talk about a little bit higher in the draft order and that kind of thing as well. Whole lot of talking about that coming up as we head toward the draft and get into things like the mock drafts and all the things we love to do. But it's setup time right now as we get towards that. So we got a great show lined up. Riz, sir, are you ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's kick this off and break it down.
Ooh, yeah, here we go. All right, welcome everybody in the chat. Hey, Don Burr, how you doing? Don Burr is perfect in the winter.
It is.
It'll keep you warm when it's time to talk about the Chicago Bears, as he likes to say. All right, let's get into it. The warm-ups, drunk and distracted. Tuesday for most of us, but let's get into.
God, it's Wednesday.
It's left over from Tuesday. Let's talk about what's going on. The first one, maybe I'm overstating a little bit, but it went well with distracted. If you think we're getting Myles Garrett, you may be drunk. It's not that I don't like Myles Garrett and wouldn't love him to be a Detroit Lion. You know, we can move that aside. It's not that I don't think he could do amazing things on this team and on this defense. I just don't think there's a way to make this work within the system that Brad Holmes chooses to run, which has been highly successful for us thus far.
I'm with you on that. Like, I would love Myles Garrett. He's my favorite player. He's an incredible talent. He's the best defensive player on the planet. Although Aiden Hutchinson was threatening him last year. Put those two hands together, and my God,
you'd make that Eagles Super Bowl defense look timid with those two on the same line.
Potentially, but that leads into the issue. They're the only two players on your team anymore. Like, you don't have the ability to add literally anybody else.
Yep.
And that just doesn't. That's not what this team does. As exciting as it would be to have Myles Garrett, as fantastic as it would be, I would never wear pants again. I would be physically incapable of getting them up over certain parts of my body. But like, it's
so between your hips and knees.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is the Browns really don't want to move him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I don't think this is them doing I hear that a lot from Lions people and actually people from other teams too. Oh, they're just negotiating. They're trying to get the higher price. Well, if they are, they're doing a really good job of it because they sure seem like they are hell-bent on keeping him and trying to make it work and trying to convince him that, okay, maybe we'll give you that new contract. Because there is some educated school of thought that he's doing this to get more money now. And like, at least if I have to play in Cleveland, I'm going to make more than $25 million a year. You know, they're going to double that for me, and they could.
Yeah.
Like, if that's his extortion angle, good for him. Because that team, unless they luck into the Sam Darnold of 2024 in Minnesota. Like, they're not good. Now, if they get a quarterback, they can be pretty good really, really quickly. They have some other needs too, but
don't they have a cost issue with
yes.
the Groper?
Yes, yes, and that
I don't think it's allegedly. He's convicted Groper,
cap-wise. Yes, he's been convicted in a civil court. I want to say
convicted Groper.
No. Not Justin Tucker. We're talking about either. He's different.
He has yet to be. He's alleged Groper. We have a convicted Groper. We're required.
Yes, that they're paying a fully guaranteed contract to. Wow,
what a life!
It's fun not covering the Browns anymore. I don't miss that.
All right, so that's the part. Again, we're just doing warm ups. So we're never.
It's too hard to make that happen. By the way, I was reminded today because something happened, and we'll get to that later. I was reminded today in the 2018 season. In 2017, I covered the Hugh Jackson Browns and the Matt Patricia Lions. Yeah. Like, y'all wonder why I drink.
Well, yeah. You talk about it. What's in the water in Ohio? Matt Patricia at Ohio State.
So so this is fun, and I'll just go into this really quickly. I got booked. I do the show in 97.1 in Columbus a lot. Bobby Carpenter is one of the co-hosts. I know him. Braina Beam. I went to high school there. Like, I know those guys. They're good people. Good show. A lot of my friends get to listen, which is fun. And they booked me not last night, but 2 nights ago to do this morning without knowing any of this. And then it quickly turned into me being peppered with questions about what Matt Patricia did in Detroit that makes everybody in the world freaking hate that guy. And I had some fun with that. And then I had an interaction with my dad is a Buckeye guy. He has a Buckeye prosthetic leg. He's an alumni there. Like, that's he's entitled to that. That's his passion. And we had talked on the phone last night briefly that he's like, tell me this Matt Patricia thing isn't right. And I'm like, I think it might happen, Dad. And so after it went official today, he sent me a text, and the first word in it is
I text a speech or I speech from the text what your dad said, and as a guy lifelong from Ohio, for him to say,
"Get back the fuck up out my face, goddammit! I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Don't play with me."
He now identifies as a man from Detroit now that they've moved Patricia down there to the Buckeyes. That's pretty something for your dad to do.
So he was like very, very agitated, and so I'll actually bring the picture up. This is my dad with his Ohio State leg, moving it the wrong way.
There you go.
My dad. He looks a little bit like an angry Bill Belichick.
That's awesome. What's up, Dad?
Love my dad. Great fan. But he had dealt with me while I was in that forlorn state of 2017 and 2018 when I was because when I went to Cleveland to cover that team, I stayed at their house, and I would be like, and he would ask me all the time, which team's worse? Because at that point we could see the Patricia wagon going down the hill the wrong way, ass over heels. And I will still say that Hugh Jackson was less competent, but Matt Patricia was worse. Yeah. Because he sucked all life and hope and enjoyment out of football for everyone he touched.
Yeah. And boy, did he touch a lot of people right in their fandom.
And it's so, Chris, we've had this conversation many times, but it's so sad because you and I, when we had interactions with him outside of the football context, we kind of liked him. Like, he was a good dude. And a lot of people who ran into him casually, like, oh, he's a nice guy. But the disingenuosity of how he treated everything. And by the way, he did that in Philly. Look at the Eagles defense. They were really, really good in 2022. He joins in 2023. They were 30th. Then this year they win the Super Bowl with that defense, almost the exact same people. Like, it's not a difficult stretch to make. So.
You got this 2 firsts, which would be dang near second rounders for Garrett. Is there really a question if we should? Number one, I don't think that's what's going to happen.
You're going to have to do more than that.
You're going to have to pay you more than that. And number 3, yes. If you're calling your 2 firsts nearly second, that means you're not drafting your first player till the 3rd round. By your logic for 2 years. If that's what you want to do, you might be high. Right. Yeah, that's not.
Just with that, you're also competing against other teams who can offer picks in the early 20s or the teens instead of getting Detroit's in the 30s or 28.
Yep.
Keep that in mind. That matters. You better believe that matters to Cleveland.
Yeah. Here you go. Peaceful Tim is a perfect one. Send Jack Fox. They punt a bunch. Win-win trade. Here you go. Peaceful Tim. I like that one. All right. So that's the drunk part. Look, I would love him here. And if anybody could do it,
too.
Brad Holmes could make it happen. If anybody could, Brad Holmes could. I just don't think he will. I think the idea is drunk. We'll allude to it a little more later in the show, so we'll get to that. But let's get to the distracted piece.
At minimum, he's going for 2 firsts, a day 2 this year, a day 2 next year, and you've got to pay him $40 million a year to start. Yeah. That's to just have a conversation to have him report to your building. It's probably going to be more than that. That's not what the Lions do. It's just not.
Nope. All right, the distracted part. Talk about a lot of folks blaming Ben Johnson for the Lions' loss. He was distracted by the whole coaching thing. Evidently, Kellen Moore has a better locus of control over his attention span as he leaves for the
good for Kellen
Saints.
Moore, man.
Yeah, good for him.
Like I gave that guy so much crap as a quarterback, but he's a good coach, and I wish him well. I hope it works for him.
But we talked about that, Riz,
just annoyed the crap out of me.
When he was, and I loved that. I loved how bad they got on your nerves. But we talked about that. He's one of those guys that really could end up being a good coach. You know what I mean? He had the football mind. He had all the right stuff except the arm. He didn't have the arm to play in the NFL. Oh, man.
He threw with the wrong arm. That was part of why.
All right. So there you go. Drunk. Distracted. Let's get going. Let's start about the Detroit Lions coaching additions.
Yes, please.
All right. John Morton, we talked about that during Senior Bowl. Mr. Johnny Morton. Not Johnny Morton, who was giving shit to Jay Leno back in the day. This is John Morton. He's different guy. Used to be here. Stood up for Craig Reynolds in Hard Knocks. If folks saw that, he's that little clip.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
he was the one who was like, we'd be heartbroken if we lost Craig or something like that.
He's the soul of the type of player we want on this team. He's the type of player that this team wants to be, right? And it was
it's true.
He did it, and he was right, and he was absolutely right. I mean, you can see that, and there's other little pieces along the way where you can see what John Morton is and kind of what they saw in him. He's a guy that has a lot to offer. I know a lot of people worried about his little stint with the Jets, but if that was the case, there's a whole bunch of coaches and trees coming out of there that are untouchable.
That was an expansion team offense. Go back and look at the personnel on that offense in 2017 in New York.
Yep.
That's like that. The only team they could beat was Cleveland.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't remember the schedule. I try to block that year out.
So
that was long.
Beyond John Morton, who like I said, we talked about it during the Senior Bowl. So we'll add some of the newer names that we haven't talked about yet. David Shaw, the passing game coordinator, has been added to the Detroit Lions. What do you think, Riz? This guy he knows nothing about the pass game. He's absolutely a flunky. Couldn't even throw a high school football. What are we doing here? What kind of stupid thing is this?
I'm glad he's not our head coach because he was not a good head coach at Stanford.
Yeah.
You get that out of the way right off the top. I gave him a ton of crap when he was their coach. I thought he underachieved, and they did relative to their talent level. But he's not the head coach. He's the passing game coordinator. And with that, you can go back to those Stanford tapes when they had Kevin Hogan and some other guys on their team that wound up in the NFL. They put quite a few linemen into the league. Mm-hmm. And they were creative. They were fun. They did a lot of play action. They did a lot of layered concepts in their passing game that tend to work very well in the NFL. So in that aspect, Detroit, I'm pretty happy to have him.
And particularly in Detroit. And if you think of it as a puzzle piece, right? We talk about this where the Lions offense isn't just Ben Johnson's mind. Ben Johnson was a smart guy, no question about it. But it wasn't that we lost our entire offense or our soul or our personality when we lost Ben Johnson, and that's part of how they design, how they lead, how they run their business, right? But this is another guy, another brain, and a very, very smart brain and creative brain that you can bring to this brain trust that runs the Detroit Lions offense, and the defense similarly does the same sort of a thing. It's a fantastic opportunity. It's an opportunity for him, and it's an opportunity for the Detroit Lions. And this is one of those things where, as we see these changes and the people that are coming in, Ben Johnson isn't going to know what he's going to see from the Detroit Lions offense. He's going to know some tendencies. He's going to know the personality of the coach, but it's going to be conceptually the same, but different. And that's the part that's going to be, and there's going to be all new wrinkles to this. I'm excited about what this looks like. I am as excited as the players are about those Bears games next year. I think they're going to be a whole lot of fun to watch these chess matches unfold. I don't want to say sweep. We could talk about what the season kind of looks like, but we definitely have the upper hand on this series against the Bears next year. I genuinely believe that.
Oh yeah, and like they've got a lot of work to do. Look, I think Ben Johnson, look, he's a break guy. He knows what he's doing, but he went there because he wanted to hitch his wagon to Caleb Williams. Good luck. I mean, I understand the allure there, but it's not for me. It's not for a lot of us. So I don't wish ill upon him, but I think he's got a lot of work to do to get to be competitive with the Detroit Lions because, like you said, they've replaced guys here. And Tanner Engstrand is gone now. He went to the Jets with AG to be their offensive coordinator. By the way, Tanner, and you know this better than I do, he's not an in front of the room kind of guy. He's a behind the scenes kind of guy. He's just not. He was never seriously considered to be the Lions offensive coordinator from everything I've gleaned. They knew what he was as a personality, and that's not who he was.
Yeah, I mean, you have introverts, you have extroverts, and then you have other kind of characteristics of personality, and he's just not like. And I don't say this in a negative way, right? Because everybody does things differently, but he's just not an inspirer of men, if that makes sense, right?
That's a good way to say it. That jives very well with what I've heard about him. I've only ever had one conversation with him, so I don't know him from Adam, but yeah. So there's going to be some losses, but the new. And Chris, you and I, we had this conversation with Russ when we were sitting in the 17th floor lounge of the Holiday Inn the first night we were down in Mobile.
Before Russ,
and we were talking about how the new coaches coming in give chances to make change that we kind of want to see on both sides of the ball.
Yep.
And that's where John Morton comes in after working with Sean Payton for the last couple of years. David Shaw's from that branch as well. They're more aggressive in throwing down the field and using the backs more on the outside of the formation rather than the inside, which is what Ben Johnson typically wanted them to do. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a little different. It's not going to be the same, and that's not necessarily bad. I'm going to guess that they're not going to have run plays where Penei Sewell has to make the block ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs sprinting to the left side to pick off the guy who's blocking. Taylor Decker's blocking the guy in front of Frank Ragnow. Penei Sewell is looping around to the outside to pick off the backside linebacker with Graham Glasgow falling down before he gets out to the play side linebacker. Like all that blocking confusion, that was Ben Johnson. Mm-hmm. I hope that goes away because that drives me freaking crazy.
Yep.
Just like I understand you need to do some things to mix it up, but ask your players to do things that are conceivable. Please.
Well, it's conceivable, but executable, maybe. Let's, I want to just, we got Donkey Kong. We got, what's his name? Robert Yankee. Hey, from Ocala. Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you. Drive through there all the time, going to Gainesville. All right, let's talk about another young man who is just so far over his head. I don't even know what this team is thinking about with these coaching hires. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. Bruce Gradkowski as an offensive coach. We've crashed the car again, Riz. It's all over. Time to jump ship. Maybe become a Vikings fan at this point, I guess, if you want to find success, right? This is just the end of the season for the Lions.
Toledo Rockets legend Bruce Gradkowski. He looks like Joe Satriani, like dead ringer for him, which is fun for me. For the 8 of you who are watching who know who Joe Satriani is, love you guys. Start singing crowd chant in your head. Of course, you can't sing it because it's an instrumental. Great song. Needs to be played in stadiums more, but I digress.
You do.
Bruce Gradkowski is a former NFL quarterback, long-time NFL quarterback. He played for a ton of teams. I can't even remember them all. I remember him from the Jets, actually. But I want to say he was with the Steelers or maybe he's from Pittsburgh. I don't know. There, a lot of places. Coordinator experience. He was the Battle Hawks of the UFL. He was their offensive coordinator for the last 2 years. They had a pretty good offense. This is another guy who's bringing in different wrinkles. They had a really good tight end who was kind of the focal point of their offense at times. Sam Laporta. Felt a little bit underutilized this past year, didn't he, folks?
Yeah.
Maybe that's some revival there. I'm very happy to have Bruce in. He's a go-getting up-and-coming coach. He's a funny guy. I have a mutual friend of his. I told the story in the Slack that I wound up meeting him through a mutual guy, and we're gonna like him. It's the long and the short of it.
Come on, my doom and gloom isn't working here. We're trying to set the bar low so
Sorry.
everything grows as the season goes on.
I mean, Ohio State just sucked all that negative life out by hiring Matt Patricia to work with Ryan.
They
Day.
just installed the black hole. That's
My
crazy.
dad said, was Hitler not available?
Was Hitler? Oh my
Had
God. No, Mr. Rizzin.
I might have tainted his opinion of Matt Patricia a little.
All right. Let's go to Tyler Roehl, offensive coach coming in from Iowa State, right? Excuse me.
Yes, Iowa State, not Iowa, as every freaking Facebook commenter has put up. Iowa's offense fucking sucked, dude. Why are we getting this ass hat? Direct quote from Facebook. It's Iowa State. Cyclones, not Hawkeyes. They play in the Big 12, I think. Maybe they're in the ACC. I don't know. You can't keep track of the conferences anymore. He worked under Matt Campbell, the guy that the Lions also tried to hire when they hired Dan Campbell. I know it's confused. Look, I've just blown all y'all's minds. So
Isn't Maine in the SEC now? I don't know how these things are going.
Coming soon.
Yeah. Oh God, NDSU. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
So he was at Iowa State. He was their offensive coordinator. No, he was not. He was their something. Like
Yes, he was there
fullback.
something.
Yes, offensive. He was the offensive coordinator at North Dakota State, which is where he played. Go Bison! They are a powerhouse. You've probably seen them. He has the best way to get to know him. He's got coaching clinics for fullbacks and tight ends that he's published online. You have to pay for them if you really want to watch him, but you can get free previews, and you get a pretty good feel for who he is and what his coaching style is. And it hasn't been officially announced yet, but I'm going to guess he is the new tight ends coach, replacing Steve Hayden, who is a loss. He will be missed.
It is a
He's
loss.
good coach.
It is absolutely a loss. That's it hurts.
He was one. He and JT Barrett were really the two coaches that I didn't want to get out the door, and they both left.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
At least we
Look
held
up
on
some
to
other
Braden
ones.
Coombs, though, right? Sorry, sometimes I just can't help myself, especially when I'm distracted. I'm trying to find.
We kept Sean John Hamilton. That was good.
Yep.
He's going to be. I think he's a very different type of person than Kelvin Shepard is as a linebackers coach. I'm interested to see how that dynamic plays out, but I think he's a good, promising young coach, and he'll hopefully find his way. I'm happy they kept him.
And Gray Zabel's out there as another NDSU guy this year. Maybe this is the recruiting inspiration we need.
Chris, he was so good. He was so good.
He was so good. Okay, moving on. We talked about Casey Rogers as a defensive line coach at the Senior Bowl as well. Really good line. Really good ad. That's awesome. Yes, Black
Former
Lion.
Buccaneers defensive coordinator.
Yeah, really, and a guy who was ready to be a defensive coordinator. And it's actually, I love that fact that he and Kelvin are kind of gonna co-work together in that role, and both kind of grow into the ability to be a DC. So we may, it's potential Rodgers could leave next year. He may stay a year or two just to skill up and then move. But this is a really good opportunity for him and us and to really put some really nice pieces together on this defense and to grow our coaches in a good way. So again, the multiple mindset thing. Also, as Black Lion said, we kept Hank Fraley. Absolutely. Probably the most important coach we kept. Added the title run game coordinator to his work. So between him and David Shaw, they'll be working with John Morton to put together the most powerful offense in the NFL. And of course, Kelvin Shepard. Promoted to defensive coordinator. So a lot of movement at coaches, a lot of switcheroo, a lot of people moving. I think for a lot of people, you can look at the Eagles and see what's happened to them 2 years after losing their two coordinators. How they've been able to bounce back pretty quickly and pretty strong. I don't know that it takes 2 years for this team. Just the way they're built, they're not as dependent on the people themselves. I think it's good. I think this Detroit Lions team continues to make smart moves, put good people in good places, and continue to grow and run their system and trust their process. Pads low and all that, right?
I agree. That's right. It's better than keeping bad people for too long.
Or getting rid of good people and downgrading for more money, the Bob Quinn way.
Yes. Yeah, yes. I just think that it's cool that we're like, people want to coach with the Lions. They want to be part of the Dan Campbell experience.
Yep. Who
said that about Jim Caldwell? Who said that about Matt Patricia? Who said that about Jim Schwartz, for that matter? Or Steve Mariucci? Or Rod Marinelli? Or, oh my God, I'm going way back.
Matt Millen.
Ugh.
Just want to go the GM route. Let's get our Harleys quick, Jeff. Then we'll be cool.
Marty Morton went canceling practice and riding off in the motorcycle because he didn't like the way they warmed up.
We're going to show how tough we are.
We've had some fun in Detroit, ladies and gentlemen.
Give me the win, bitches. Oh, man. Okay, so there we go. We got a bunch of coaches. I want to take us to the next topic here really quick.
I tried to defend that once upon a time. Failed.
Yeah, as you should have.
Like I really do understand the principle behind it. I really do. Like, and I get where he was coming from, but you can't do it.
No, right. Like, yeah. I understand a lot of people doing dumb things, but you can't do the dumb thing.
Oh my God, yeah.
All right, let's take a look back, a little bit of a retrospective on this 2024 season, because I've seen a lot of stuff. As we talked about earlier, the distracted thing about Ben Johnson was distracted by the job interviews, and that's why we lost. You know, that's why Jared Goff had his likely worst game of the season, and why Amik lost an arm, and we have no cornerbacks or depth. That's exactly what happened. It was all Ben Johnson's fault.
No, I don't want to let him off the hook, though.
No.
Because I do think that he didn't prepare very well for Washington.
I agree.
And that's not entirely on him either.
But exactly.
He did not have a good game.
He called a terrible game.
Yes.
His play calling was horrible. Now, the prep for that game defensively was bad. Cannot let AG off the hook. Cannot. No. We can all say we love AG. But was he distracted too? Because that defense was no, it wasn't him distracted. Yeah. Okay, so but the defense was not prepared. This team, I think, really overlooked the Washington Commodes. I just think that's what they did. The Commanders were a better team than they expected. They had not lost since like November, and everyone. I did too. I mean, I looked past them. I got just too cocky when I normally don't even feel that way as a fan, right? But I think. I'm not trying to project myself onto the team, but I feel like there was just a sense that we couldn't lose this. And I think that's a little bit of what happened. Again, you can't say that, hey, we trust the offense is made up of multiple coaches and many brains, and then say this is only Ben Johnson's fault, because a lot of people put this game plan together. But we can say the play calling was horrible in the moment. And I don't know that has to do with the fact that he was out interviewing for another job. I think he just made a series of his worst decisions of the season.
And if you listen to some people in Chicago, he's been in contact with them for a long time. Like, this wasn't some fly-by-night thing. He was pretty aware that he was going to be the Chicago Bears head coach before the regular season ended, if you believe some people. I do tend to believe those people. So, I don't know. It's tough. It's just, with Washington, I wrote it in the thing that I write before every game, the last-minute thoughts. I was like, they don't know they're supposed to lose, and that makes them dangerous. And I think that happened too. Yeah. And I don't think that the Lions collectively took that seriously enough. Or
they were very much the Lions of last year. They're very much the Lions' position last year.
Yeah.
I want to go to one of the first things I want to talk about in this retrospective that we can learn is the idea of mortgaging the future. And I want to use what David D6D6 says here. The loss of Meek Robinson in the second defensive play of Washington game was very costly. Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
100%.
And I'm gonna put a scenario out here for you, Riz, because this ties back to what we started the show with too. The idea of mortgaging the future. We lost Hutch, and a lot of fans kind of went into that panic mode immediately and were Max Crosby, we got to get Max Crosby. Oh my God. This is the only chance. This is our year. This is going to happen. I just want to ask you, if Max Crosby, let's say we get him, we put all these picks and money and everything else in the basket with Max Crosby, and we'll say he doesn't get injured. Is that game different when Amik gets hurt?
Probably not. I don't think so.
Even if we pull
maybe a little bit.
Even
maybe,
if we pull
maybe you have to
out,
blitz less.
Even if you pull it out, do you think he can beat the Philadelphia Eagles with that team without Amik now?
No.
But now the future has been put. You've now self-imposed a closing window, right? Because right now, when you think about, we'll talk about the cap a little bit, but in 26, we're in a pinch already. Not that it means anything right now, but you can damage yourself and make it not salvageable, right? Yeah.
There's ways to get out of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. But you could hurt yourself, right? And that's now let's flip that around. Let's say we did all that and we lost Max Crosby because he got injured like he did. Now what?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's putting all those eggs in a basket for a one-time shot. Some teams, it's the right time to do that. This team, I don't think at all this is the right time to do that. You've got to be in a place where that window is already starting to close and you got your last grasp, kind of the drowning man attempt to stay above water. That's the only way I think you can make that kind of a move.
Right. Buffalo might be there right now.
Yeah.
Baltimore could be. Actually, I think Derrick Henry was kind of that move for them, and it sort of worked. I mean, Lamar Jackson was outrageously good.
Yeah.
You can say that Philadelphia doing it. Although Saquon running back, because he's so inexpensive, that was a pretty easy one. But the big move like that, I don't think the Lions are there yet. I don't think they're ready to panic to try and win, because I think they believe they can win if they hit on a free agent or two and one of their first couple draft picks and their internal development process, which has treated them so well so far. Another year in the system for a lot of guys. Terry and Arnold stepping up, hopefully more in the second season. Hopefully we get Dennis Rakestraw on the field for more than a week would be great. Derek Barnes, if he comes back, more time with Trevor Nowatzki being in the system for another time. Yep. They like him a lot.
Yeah.
Kirby Joseph emerged as a Pro Bowler / All-Pro. He got snubbed for, I think it was a Pro Bowl, wasn't it? He made All-Pro.
Yeah.
Like, who saw that coming necessarily outside of Kirby and his belief in himself? Yeah. I don't think many people outside of Detroit pictured Kirby Joseph being an All-Pro this year and being as impactful as he was. Like, who's going to be that next guy to make that next step? I think they believe they have a lot of candidates to do that. Yeah. And they're going to get a couple more of those with their draft picks. And that's their system, and that's worked very well for them. And I don't expect them to change from that, and you probably shouldn't either.
Right. And then returning Hutch makes all the difference in the world too, right? I mean, it's just it's one of those things, and you still now have the ability to pick guys up. And so I think just that whole idea of injuries happen, and they can sideline a season when they happen en masse like they did this year.
They did.
I think the fans should look at this Detroit Lions team that went 15-2 and be really impressed with how well they did with the situation that they were in. It would have been an absolute gift from the gods themselves to have made it to a Super Bowl this year with that injury list. I mean, Aleem going down, right? Amik going down, CD3 out early, right? Hutch, all these guys. You're in this tough spot. So I want to go. It goes to my next point that I want to make about this kind of retrospective and like what can we learn? You talk about depth at key positions, right? How do you plan? Well, retrospectively this year, we'd say, gosh, we need more depth on defensive line. Obviously, okay, we need more depth at defensive line because those guys are getting hurt, and that really wrecked us. And the secondary, we need more depth at secondary. And And well, I mean, Rodrigo playing was really important. We could probably use depth at the linebacker position. And then when Graham Glasgow, we need some more depth on the offensive. I mean, you're gonna every fucking position needs depth because you don't know where the injuries are gonna hurt. And when your starters that get hurt and they're that good, it makes a big freaking difference. And it's one of those things where you can say next man up until you're running a second string team, right? I don't know how you plan. There's some positions that are a little bit more injury prone, but I don't know how you plan for as many injuries and as many positions as we had, Riz. I just don't know how you can do that other than build a deep team and hope that wand of death doesn't wave over your stadium, man.
It was brutal. And like, look at San Francisco and look at how the injuries impacted them. They wound up a last place team. They didn't have the resiliency to even get a winning record. Like the Lions persevered with all those guys out on defense. You know, even some of the guys that they signed to be insurance, Kyle Pecco, gone right away. Levi played all year. Haskell kind of in and out, never really developed. You know, they've appeared to have missed on Broderick Martin. You know, they didn't get contributions from guys that they were counting on. You know, Derek Barnes going down so early. I don't think we collectively appreciate how important he was to what AG wanted to do.
Yeah,
because he was that third rusher, and he could line up
early that outside. You forget. Yeah. I forget about Barnes just because it happened so early in the season, and it's like how impactful he was early. And Hutch, of course, was such a big deal, right? And you just kind of, it was too easy to whistle past what Barnes was doing and how important he was to that defense, how much he'd grown.
And then, you know, we were without Anzalone for a while. We were without Rodrigo at that time. Our linebacking core was signed off of the Buccaneers practice squad. That was Quan Alexander. And they signed somebody else who wasn't employed and started them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, honestly, it's pretty impressive that they did what they did. And that's what gives me a lot of hope is that coaching staff, which obviously people have left, but the head man is still there and the guy who sets the tone is there. They worked wonders with that team. And we don't recall that now because that ended really, really badly and early.
Yep.
But think back to that buzz that we had, you know, coming out of, you know, Thanksgiving and into December and rolling the Vikings to win the North. Yeah. And like, oh my God, we're getting it done with guys that I've never heard of. And they're
destiny.
Still doing it. And this is awesome. And
it was destiny.
The loss has washed all that away for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to fault you for that.
No.
But try to remember and try to recapture how freaking cool it was all season when like, we just signed Jamal Adams. Like, that guy's done, and he was done. And they like got functional play out of him for a little bit, as much as they could. Like, that's incredible. We just went through an amazing season. And yes, it ended too early, but that doesn't mean that next year is going to be like that. I think they can be better next year. The roster should be better next year.
I think they're going to be better next year, but they're going to have less than a 15-2 record, and it's obviously way too early.
I would agree with that too.
Record positions.
Right.
That 15-2 is an absolute anomaly, and I think this is one of the other things that we can learn from the season. You don't have to be 15-2 to make it to the big show. You don't have to be the first seed. Now, for us, being the first seed this year was an absolute gift, just how injured we were and having that really early bye to get some time for these guys. It's just
that early bye sucked.
Yeah, that stung us really, really hard. And so the late bye kind of helped, but I don't think that bye week there is what hurt us. I genuinely don't think that hurt us at all. I think that it was more needed than any kind of thing that it did wrong. I think I'll say it again, that win over Minnesota, all that blood rushed away from our brains to another part of our body, and we got a little bit big-headed about, you know, what we were. Yep, about what we were, and that's just it's unfortunate. But again, these are lessons learned from a young team, and it is a very young team who's grown, a young coach who's learned a lot this year, and who's bringing in new guys who, if you think about it, people were asking at the beginning of this year, have people figured out Ben Johnson's offense? You remember that? Have they figured out the offense already? Oh my gosh. Well, Nobody's figured it out now because Ben's gone, right? And they hadn't figured it out either. So, but that question will be gone this year, so that'll be fun. But oh man. So I think that's a big one. I want to go one more thing about this, Riz, and absolutely I'll open up to you. But the idea of managing cap room, we came in with a whole bunch of space in cap comparatively, right? I don't want to say we had a whole ton of space, but we had a pretty big cap space coming into the season. And boy, as you start looking at the injuries pile up, we had the flexibility to get guys that we needed if we wanted to go at them. If they were the guys that were going to make the difference, it gave us the ability not to crash the season, tank for number one because we lost Hutch or a key player.
Right.
And I think this cap management piece, even going into a season, it's rollover cap. That's great. It sure could be. But it's a hell of an insurance policy when you have a season like we just had.
It is. That's how we went out and got Zadarius Smith.
Yep.
And how we plugged in some guys that came from out of seemingly nowhere. And some of those guys might be keepers. I think Zadarius will be back. I don't think he's going to be back in his current contract, but I do think he's going to be back competing for that number 3, maybe number 2, but probably number 3, maybe number 4 role. That's something that I laid out. By the way, shameless self-promotion. I did a mock offseason. It came out today at Lions Wire. Check that out. It's the first one. I have a second one. It's already pre-written in my head. It's somewhat outlined on the back end of where we post things. That should be up Saturday or Sunday. But the first one tends to be one where I'm fairly conservative and realistic, trying to be. The next one will be where I have a little bit more fun and break some Brad Holmes character traits and try to impose my will upon the team, which probably won't go well.
Well, that's why he's the GM and you're writing for Lions Wire, right? I mean, that's how it works.
That's exactly right. I'm certainly not qualified to do that.
And I'm not writing anywhere.
I want to be. Yeah, nor would I want to be.
Oh man,
it's fun. It's fun to play the scenarios. And Chris, you know this. I love doing that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
I love going through the hypotheticals in my head of what could happen and the ripple effects of it and how it all goes. And that's sort of what the contract thing that you're talking about is. Like, okay, you go back to the Myles Garrett. All right, you're going to give up 4 cost-controlled, important picks. Like, let's just say if you're doing the last couple drafts, you were removing Jack Campbell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch, and Sam Laporta from the team. The ability to get those guys.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to pay somebody else to fill those roles because you're a top-level team. You're competing for a Super Bowl. You can't just not have guys. And you're going to pay Myles Garrett more than you're paying Aiden Hutchinson. You also have to pay Kirby Joseph. You just paid Amon-Ra, Panay, Goff. Taylor Decker's on the hook for some. They signed somebody else got an extension. I can't even keep track of it all. Aleem, thanks. That's the one that came to me.
Yep.
Like, okay, that's your team for 2025 and 2026 and 2027. You're not going to get any comp picks other than the one that you get for Aaron Glenn getting hired in 2026, which would be pick 102, 103. You're not going to have a first-round pick. You're not going to have a second/third round pick, one or the other, in either of the next 2 years. Like, you can't do that. How are you going to pay for people that are good? How are you, like, let's say Amon-Ra gets hurt. I think we all agree that would be pretty freaking devastating to our offense. You got to replace that somehow.
Yep.
Are you going to be able to go out and get, I don't know, somebody who's a marginal starter on another team with some experience and some connection to one of the Lions coaches who can come in and at least give you something? Or are you going to be signing a guy who got cut by 2 UFL teams and is on a different practice squad right now just because his agent is good?
Couple of quick things here. A long way, yes, is Dale M. A Lombardi trophy, and that's all that matters. This 15-2 Lions team will not be remembered in the slightest outside of Detroit. Yippee. Potentially, nobody remembers the 96 Red Wings team, but everybody remembers the 97 team, right? And the President's Cup trophies before that, nobody remembers that, although I seem to. And we remember the 97 team, and we remember it more because of the 96 team and the 95 team and the 94 team. it makes it that much sweeter. It'll happen. It's not that big a deal. The other one
I want to get
to
that's true across places too. Like I know from Houston experience, they remember that 2012 team very, very fondly down there. Yep. They didn't win. They were a great, great team. Probably the best team in Texans history, and they still get a lot of love.
2014, 2011 Lions teams, people remember those teams a lot, and they didn't even go close to 15-2. So then here's Jeff Holman. He says, then how do we get a pass rush? That's the only reason it sounds so good. We have to be able to get to the quarterback. How do we do that? How do we help Hutch? If you remember, after a month into the season, Hutch was leading the league in sacks. After 2 months in which he didn't play the second, he was leading the league in sacks. We had a pass rush with our healthy players. We didn't need help for Hutch. We had the line. It's just everybody got hurt. It was an anomaly. It is not the standard for the NFL. So I'm not as concerned. I'm just not as concerned. I understand why people are. You watched 14 games without Hutch, and where we had one of the highest pressure rates but didn't get home. I get it. I totally get it. But when they're healthy, they're all there. And you can add to that through the draft. You can add the pieces you need.
This is a phenomenal draft to need pass rushers specifically.
Defensive line is
I think defensive tackle is better than edge. Mm-hmm. But man, you can find some guys in the second and third round. I did not do that in my mock draft this time. I went interior. I went Walter Nolan with the first pick from Ole Miss.
Where do you have Mike Green?
He's gone before the Lions picked in this scenario.
Yeah, I believe it. Okay, I can see that.
And
I'm kind of focused. I'm kind of he's my guy. Right? I've got my crowd.
But there are guys I can find you, and I will write it at Lionsware. I will find you 5 second or third round picks who can start right away for most NFL teams, Detroit included, as a pass rusher and get you 6.5 sacks next year as a rookie. We good with that? Bringing Za'Darius back too with his, 4.5 in Detroit?
Yeah.
Most of that was clustered in like 1 or 2 games. I get that, but look, he went from being number 3 to number 1 overnight. That's asking a lot for an older guy who didn't play in the system. I think he'll be better this coming year. I think the guys that they have in reserve, Isaac Ukwu, Nate Lynn, Nowaski, I brought him up earlier as a Sam. I think he's going to be better. I think there's a ceiling there, but I'm not terribly worried about the pass rush. I think Kelvin Shepard, his emphasis on linebackers too. I think you're going to be. Remember, 2 years ago, Alex Anzalone was a kick-ass blitzer. One of the best A-gap blitzers in football. He didn't really do that last year.
Yep.
They can go back to doing that stuff too.
I just want to say
it's not going to be the same. And that's okay.
Before we go, I want to make sure, did you have anything you wanted to add to the season retrospective piece? What anything we've learned from this season? Because we're leaning into the draft and free agency, and I want to.
Yeah. I would just say, I think, just go with that last point. It was great. It's not replicable because no season is ever the same. Yeah. And I think that going forward, they are in a very good position to capitalize. Like you said, they might go 12-5 next year.
Might go 10.
But they might be better because of their health and because of the way that they're positioned and the way that they get playoff matchups.
Yeah.
I will absolutely expect this Lions team to at least make the NFC Championship game next year, if not the Super Bowl. And if they don't get it, then I'll probably be really bummed because this team is there for it.
Yeah.
It does what happened this year? Like you talk about with the Red Wings, talk about it with the Pistons back when they played, Michael Jordan back in the day. They had to learn how to be the team that could win in the postseason. And I think this year was a very difficult, painful lesson that those guys who were back are going to apply next year, and they're going to understand it better. And I think that will serve them well.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the next topic we've got here, 2025 free agency and draft setup. And I'm going to go into, we touched on it, that defensive interior and exterior defensive line draft. This is the deepest at this position that I can remember in as long as I can remember. Riz, I mean, can you when do you think it was this good and this deep along the
It's
D-line.
never been this deep. Daniel Jeremiah tweeted it out, and he's right. He has starting player grades on 24 defensive linemen. Last year, he had 11.
Yeah.
That's unreal. And most of those guys are going to be gone by the time the Lions make that compensatory pick at 101 for Aaron Glenn. So they're going to have to act early. But you don't have to just get like the guys at now there are, I will say this to counter that, there are a lot of question marks with a lot of these guys, but the potential is there for these guys to be a stellar class. It's better than the wide receivers were last year. And the wide receiving class last year was freaking amazing. Oh my God. Like the number 4 guy might have been the best guy, Brian Thomas. Like you found guys throughout the draft. That's what this draft is like for defensive linemen. And I will parenthetically add, also for interior offensive linemen. Not that the Lions necessarily have to get one, but if they need one, you can get a bunch of them that are ready to roll right away if they need it.
This is where I got like my top 4 positions, and you can laugh at me if you want, but I'm saying D-line, interior, exterior, right? Like, okay, D-line. I'd probably go the first 2 picks and D-line, cornerback, offensive line, and safety. Those are the big 4 that I have. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm okay. I'm okay to be wrong in your eyes, Riz. I mean, you said you yelled at me so many times in Mobile, but it wasn't about being wrong. But you know,
I love the running back class. It's a very good running back class.
Yeah,
and it's also a pretty good tight end class if you don't need a guy like Loveland and who's the Tyler Warren they're both really, really good. And then there's like a next tier that has like 6 to 10 guys, depending on how much you like them, that are all should be on day 2, and probably a lot of them will bubble down to day 3. So I like that class a lot. Running backs, my God, this is a fantastic year to need a running back. The Lions don't.
Right.
We got Sonic and Knuckles. Craig Reynolds is under their control if they want him.
Where Jefferson scored this year. Like, I scored one. I mean, come on.
He could be back. Sione Vaki, who they drafted for special teams, but he's got some upside as a running back, receiver, maybe fullback. Maybe we'll see. They don't really need one, but I wouldn't be upset if they took one day 3 running back this year.
Yep. Okay.
Corners, look, I said it, and I wasn't the only one who said this, because you remember the people that were gathering around us during media time, and I mentioned it then, and everybody was like, hell yeah.
We had a crowd.
Every NFL team should draft at least 2 cornerbacks every freaking year.
Yeah.
I'll repeat that. Every NFL team should draft at least 2 cornerbacks every year, because you never have enough.
And what's the other position?
Never.
What's the other position?
Offensive line.
That's right. There you go. Man. Okay. So, Riz, what are your positions? Just give me your top 4 in order of what you think are the most important for our Detroit Lions.
To get this year, defensive tackle, because I'm not sure that Aleem's going to be ready to start the year, and they do need somebody on the inside who's impactful. They have to get a starter opposite Hutch, and I don't think that's coming in free agency, and I don't think it's homegrown, so you got to draft that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need an outside corner, just because of the depth and the injuries, and who knows what's going to go on with Carlton Davis, whether they bring him back or not. They still need one. And I want a legitimate number 3 wide receiver. I also want a backup tackle who can be a starter in time.
There you go. Okay.
I'll waffle on that one, because
well, that could be your top 4. You can go wide receiver, offensive line, or offensive line, wide receiver instead of offensive line and safety like I did.
I don't want, like, I love Dan Skipper. I don't want him being the 3rd tackle again.
Yeah.
And I have no clue if Giovanni Manu is going to be ready for that role or not. My guess is he's probably not. So
Dan Skipper was a natural left tackle this year. I'll take you to the shed for that one. He had a hell of a game starting for Taylor Decker. Let's not talk down about Skips.
Did you, by the way, did you see the Jameis Winston interaction with him?
Yeah.
Jameis Winston live that was incredible. Jameis is a national freaking treasure. I don't ever want him on a quarterback of any team that I care about, but he's incredible.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He
As a media guy, he would be great.
Star.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He would be awesome on like a team's media team, like the Danny Rogers role. Oh God.
Yeah.
You know who else is crazy? Former NFL guy right now, who's just an absolute wild ride, a roller coaster to watch. Antonio Brown. I just checked him out on Theo Von's podcast. My guy is whoa. It was
I'm somewhat afraid of him.
Yeah, it was a wild ride. Whoa. Loved it. I mean, I loved it. I mean, I'm a passenger, right? It's like it's the same reason you get in a roller coaster, right? You want a little bit of fear, a little bit of thrill, a little exhilaration. That's exactly what that was. Wow. Anyway, so that it's funny stuff. Someone thinks we should trade Peaceful Tim. We don't trade our listeners. What are you talking about? Okay, so the key positions.
Like Peaceful Tim.
I know. I want to talk about the cap just a little bit again, because in 26, right now, as it stands today, we're in trouble in 26 for the cap. What is just on the paper, on the numbers, if nothing else changes, right? That's not how it's going to wind up. That's not what it's going to be. I have a feeling we're going to roll over cap again. We're going to do some things, but it's one of those things that if you don't manage it actively and continuously, as Holmes has, you wind up in the Quinn problem, and we don't want to wind up there again. So no. It's just something to keep in mind, that you could break a lot of things if you do this wrong going forward. So when you say we're not going to line a whole bunch of stuff in free agency, again, probably not signing a Myles Garrett, right? We'll probably find a couple of depth pieces, but again, this isn't a front office that gets really high and crazy with the free agency stuff. While the world goes crazy in free agency, the Lions kind of plod quietly along and then go 15-2.
Yeah.
Peaceful Tim, hey, if that's how we get an elite DE, then sacrifice me.
I love that's my guy. Attitude.
That's a
servant
teammate
leadership.
Right there.
Good job, Peaceful Tim.
Oh man, I've heard Manu has grown a ton, but not quite to NFL status yet. He's looked good. There's a lot to come from this pack of people that we've got in this development.
There's
roles.
still a chance that Colby Sorstel is salvageable. I wouldn't throw in that towel yet, but it's got to be this year.
It's got to be this year, right?
Yeah. Same with Broderick Martin. It's got to be this year, or he might not make the team if he's not ready. I think that rope is done, especially since his biggest advocate is now in New England.
There you go. All right. So anything else about free agency and the cap and setting up the Lions for this year? We've got time. We've got time, and we will definitely talk about this and do some deeper dives. What is it? Yeah. March 8th-ish, somewhere around there. Everything starts, right? I'll have the calendar for everyone next week.
The combine ends the whatever Tuesday that is of the week of February into March. I will be in Indianapolis in 2 weeks at the combine. Brad and Dan both speak. I believe it's on Wednesday. It's not completely scheduled yet, but I will be there for that. And then the players start cycling through on Thursday. We get interviews with them. We get to watch them work out, which is it's so much better on TV. Just say that. Like, unless you are a die-hard fan that really wants to experience it, and it's worth a day. It's not. It's a made-for-TV experience. Is the long and the short of it. It's not action-packed by any means.
So looking just really quick for the schedule, free agency starts on March 13th. So you give free agency a good 2 weeks of news and excitement and so on, and then that leaves you a month. Draft weekend being the 26th through the 28th of April. Workouts being the 15th of April. Mandatory mini camps in June.
Don't hold it against Green Bay that the draft is there. It's going to be really, really cool. It really is. I would strongly advocate you. If you've never been there, it's worth the trip. It really is. It's kind of cool. It really is.
Yeah.
A lot of history there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely it is. And it's set up really nice. Good luck getting a hotel.
Yeah.
Even without an hour-long drive or more to the event.
It also happens to be college graduation for a local school there that weekend as well. Oops.
Oops. Yep. There's kids that aren't going to get to graduation on time.
Yes.
Oh man. in all that work for that. All right, so there you are. There's the look at it. Riz, as we look to free agency, what's your thought about the Lions? How busy, how active are they going to be?
I don't expect anything on the first day. I think they're going to lose a couple of guys on the first day. I think Levi's going to get offers elsewhere that will probably wow people, quite frankly.
Wow. I just got wowed. I didn't even recognize. I didn't even do it on purpose.
Yes, I did it. But I don't see them being. So again, I put it out in the mock offseason, and the next mock offseason will have them going a little bit bigger, higher food chain things. But that's not what we do. It's just not what this. We don't build through free agency. We might fill a hole, but keep in mind
that we do.
How many starters are coming back for this team? 20 out of 22, 19 at worst. They don't need a lot there. This is not a team that's going to have to break the budget to fill a hole right away with free agents. They've done that. I think you're looking at a guy who can compete to start opposite Hutch. I think you're going to look at a defensive lineman who's going to play, maybe a cornerback, maybe a linebacker if they decide to, if Jalen Reeves-Maben is a cap casualty, which he could be, they need a safety, but they don't need a starting safety. They need a number 3 or number 4, depending on Lawrence Strickland's development. I know, and Chris, you know this too. They like Lawrence Strickland a lot.
Yep.
They really do.
Yep.
That was made very clear to us. But if he, I would be astonished if he's back. I'd be astonished if they even offered him a contract, honestly. And they don't really have anybody else. So they're going to need to bring somebody in there that can play right away. They do have Eric Hallett, who was on the practice squad. He's on a futures contract. He's played a little bit in the league. Like maybe they see more there. But remember when they had Brady Breeze? That's the kind of guy that they're going to bring in. Incredibly good-looking young man. Not very good safety, unfortunately, but look good. And I think that's the sort of caliber of player that you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at guys that were like, oh, he was Denver's number 5 wide receiver. Little Jordan Humphrey is a possibility there. That's the kind of guys you're looking at. For free agency.
All right.
Do you agree with that, or do you think they're going to go bigger?
No, I don't think they're going big. It's not Brad's. Now, here's the thing. The one thing Holmes will do is just straight give you the.
Get the fuck up out my face, goddammit! I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Don't play with me.
He will fuck you up. And so I say no, he's not gonna, and then he goes and he does like I said. Then he goes and signs Myles Garrett after we said you're drunk if you think he's gonna, right? If anybody can, he's the guy that'll do it. That's the thing about Brad Holmes. And then you look at it and say, God dang it, he told me he was gonna do it, and then he friggin' did it. How did he's a wizard, man. He's absolutely a wizard, and I think we're not going big. I don't, just as like I said, as I look at 26, I think the smart thing to do is manage around that so that you can keep your window open and keep high flying, because as the 9-7 New York Giants will show you, just get into the playoffs and you can win. As long as you can get into the playoffs, that's all that matters, because you can win it all from there. And if you start closing that window and you don't get there, that's the problem. That's the problem. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll go from there. I do want to shout out to Donkey Kong real quick. He said, if you know anyone wealthy, I have 3 houses for rent on draft week. 2 of them are 20 minutes from Lambeau and 1 30 minutes from Lambeau. We're not wealthy, but if you got a welfare deal for Riz and I, we might be able to do a draft show from the draft. A little bit of whatever. We won't. If it's raining, we'll still go outside. We've shown that. Man.
The weather will be. We got blessed in Detroit last year. It was nice, very nice. A little cold one day.
The chat is going crazy, and I would love to, guys. And it's. I think some people get uptight because it could be taken as political, but you guys are hilarious. Peaceful Tim with the DLP discount ? Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong's house or bust. That's what we say. All right.
You do what you got to do to make a living in these days.
Yes, sir.
I know it's not easy.
All right, with that, we're going to call it a show. Riz has to fly. He's got things going on.
I do.
We covered everything. We're going to start going more in depth on the free agency opportunities as we hit next week. I am not traveling for like 2 months as of right now, so we have a good bunch of shows all the way through the draft for you. We're not going to miss any.
We can do a combine preview show late next week. That'd be good.
Sexy. I love the way you think, big boy. We've got a good one. Yeah. Oh man, Riz, I got to tell you, that time at Senior Bowl together that week, I loved it, man. It's so great to spend time together. It really, really is. To actually, nice. Instead of just this kind of video call stuff, to be able to really snuggle close and hug like that, something special.
Well, and eat fish and hear a bad singer songwriter do bad covers of bad folk songs. That was fun.
You pick a house you want to do a draft show from, and it's yours, my friends. Donkey Kong, you hold on to your hat, buddy boy. Let's.
Boy.
Wait, what? You toss a barrel, or we'll hop. It's time to go. Diddy's on the way.
In 6 hours. Actually, I hope the boats go in then. Like I can, because like I live like an hour from where the boat goes from Muskegon to wherever it goes, Manitowoc, I think it is over there.
It's a ferry.
That'd be
right?
fun. I would love to. Yes, I would love to be on the ferry. That'd be fun.
The boat.
I've never done that. I've always threatened to do that, and I want to do it.
Okay. Well, there you go. There's the show today. Thank you. We'll talk to you guys. We got a lot for you in this off season because we don't quit. We're coming up in June. It's 10 years running. We're into our 11th year, starting in June and doing this, the longest running show here through good and bad. I know some people said we're uptight. We took a break after the Washington loss, but it's the one that just needed the time. I apologize, folks. I was with you in my heart, but I just couldn't do it that day. So don't forget about us on Patreon, patreon.com/Detroit Lions podcast, patreon.com/Detroit Lions podcast. Hook us up in the Slack chat or hook up with us in the Slack chat. If you get $5 or more a month, you can get access to the Slack, and it's the most intelligent Lions chat on the internet. That is awesome. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at DET Lions Podcast and at Jeff Risden, as you see there below him on the screen, and DET Lions Podcast. All the action, all the fun is right there. Be sure to go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast. What happens when they do that, Riz the Dater?
I get to come into your ear holes automatically.
There you go. Donkey Kong, Chris at DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Get in touch with me. This sounds like fun. And yes, Peaceful Tim, thank you. Everyone, please hit that like button.
Thanks, guys.
Subscribe.
We appreciate your loyalty. We really do.
It's a lot of fun.
Love y'all, man. Thank you for all the support and kind words, and it means a lot. It really
it's
does.
fun. It's fun to do this, and it's because all of you. It genuinely is, and the folks hang around like talking Lions.
If it wasn't fun, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for you folks, we wouldn't be doing this either. I mean, especially this.
That's right.
So thank you all. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you next time on the Detroit Lions podcast. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems, because we're sexy as fuck. And we're the Detroit Lions and Reddit Connection. See you next week.